So we'll start. So thank you very
Yeah,
much,
see it.
everyone. Great. So thank you everyone for being here. This is going to be probably about, I'd imagine about 45 minutes possibly. And this is all about sort of introducing, for those who haven't done it before, what a swarm is, why we do it. Um, and then we've got Wesley from the Manchester office. He's going to be giving us a case study for Roots. So talk about how they've been doing it at Roots. And then we're going to talk about protection management, which is happening next week, and that's going to be our chance to put some of this into practice. So to start with, then, what is a swarm? If we go back 5 years ago, say when I started, we had a separate media business and we had a separate events business, and the two didn't really combine particularly. And so one of the first things which I was quite inspired to do, looking at how the sales team sort of swarm at an event, how all the sales team from all across the business, they go and they rebook an event and they get it done together. So what we started looking at was what happens if we do the same thing with content producers, with journalists. And it's, our events are not just the high point of our calendar, it's also where the community gets together. It's where the most interesting speakers are. And it's our big opportunity, really, to try and capture as much of that content as we can. So all of this we want to do from a reader's perspective. So it's about generating the best possible content that we can from a live event. And then by doing that, and by amplifying it, by working with our marketing teams and pushing it out on social media, there's also a big marketing impact on it as well, because we're amplifying what we're doing at the event and creating lots of assets we can use for the year ahead. So it serves both purposes. In terms of the objectives then for a swarm, it sort of meets all of these five. Increasing web traffic over the show period. Increasing open rates to marketing emails. So usually over the show there'll be a show daily, which just goes out, usually saying, "Come to the event tomorrow, please." But by doing this, we fill it up with content messaging about, here's all the stuff you're missing. Amplifying the overall reach of the event. It's also, as I mentioned, a great opportunity to create lots of content which we don't have to publish it all at once. That can actually help us over the months ahead, or look at how we reuse it after we've got it. And the final objective, and this is one we don't do consistently, is about creating sponsorship opportunities. And certain teams have been doing that more than others. I think C-Trade has been a good example of where we've got, they call them their live froms. The live froms have been sponsored by brands before. We have had bits of swarm coverage sponsored before. So it's something that can be done, but it's something that we haven't done consistently, and probably should do more of. So that's in a nutshell what a swarm is. As I said, we've been doing this across lots of different events over several years now. So I think we're getting an idea on the kind of content that works. So when we're out there covering an event, here is some of the types of content that we have used in the past and has worked. This isn't an exhaustive list, and the idea of this, I think, is to be as creative as possible while you're there and as responsive to what's happening. There was so Charlotte and I joined the FI team last year covering the health ingredients show, and so that was starting from a website which didn't really have any sort of legacy content on it. So we were looking there about what are the different ways that we can take photos of exhibitors, or there was one session where I was just getting bombarded with so many stats. I couldn't really think about how that would be a narrative, so it just became a sort of an infographic of just stuff. So there's all sorts of different tools we can use to create content. So we start off though with the sort of the written word, the article. This is sort of the bread and butter of most of what we do within a swarm. And that's where we already know from the conference program which are the must-attend sessions, which are going to be the most interesting ones to go to. And so we cover it. So generally, a journalist will go in with a laptop, start taking notes, and quite quickly that can then get turned into web-ready copy. So it's not particularly complicated. It's just sort of sitting through a session, trying to pick out some of the best bits. But these are three examples of particularly high-performing content. So if you look at the one on the left, that's your 5 steps to a less toxic health and safety culture. That did really well last year around safety and health experts. Probably the best performing piece of content. It's condensed the session down to a list, which is useful. It's got an attention grabbing headline. And it's quite a straightforward piece, and I think it created quite a lot of conversation underneath it. So, good journalistic practice. We're always looking for the headline, and always lead with the headline. We don't want to lead with such and such stood on stage at this show and talked about something. That's not important. Our brand isn't important. What we're trying to say is what's the story. The second article there is about Brexit. This was again at the show last year, which coincided with the UK referendum on leaving the European Union. And so it was a topic of conversation all around the show floor. So what Ros did was she spoke to a number of visitors and got a snapshot of this is what practitioners in health and safety are saying about this. So I think visitors are an underused source of content. And then on the right, we've got an example for Roots. And again, just in the other examples, it's a simple, straightforward piece which leads with the story, and where possible also includes the brand. So in this case, Skyscan. So if you can get an interesting brand squeezed into the headline, then great. Images. Where possible, we like to use images because it helps show that there is actually something which is happening here, and it captures some of the energy of the event. The idea not missing out. So the one on the left, this is something that we do now, and we'll be doing it next week. We do it on the first day of the show, and we send a photographer around, but as soon as the doors open, just to take photos of more interesting things that are going on, any particularly interesting features on the show floor, and just to get a feel for what it is. And this article on the left is what we lead with on the day one newsletters. It's here's the show, this is what's happening, look at the show, pictures. Really simple. The second article, I think Tara wrote this for us actually. Is that right, Tara?
It is. I did. Yeah.
I think she did.
I did.
Yeah. So this was a really good sort of write up. Katie, really inspirational session. Moving along, this was. I mentioned my experience at the Health Ingredient Show and not having a clue really what was going on, except that there are all these numbers jumping out at me. So rather than get a typical article, I just built this in Infogram, which is again really easy to use. It's a very flexible tool. You can just quickly just bring snippets of what's going on. It's a sort of a log kind of effect, really. And then on the right, again, this is from the Health Ingredient Show. Some of the best stuff was on the show with these sort of feature zones where the partner was, but they had displays of packaging innovations from Asia, from Europe, and all of those we could turn to here innovations in food packaging stuff. So a lot of the features which we're creating as part of the live event also works as content. Here we've got some examples of video, how we've used it. Next week at IFSEC, we've got a video crew who we work with called Silverstream, who work with us over the first 2 days. And so one of the great things about having that resource there is Silverstream is that they'll go around to the features, to some of the main exhibitors, and then they'll produce this really short, sort of three-minute videos, upload it straight onto YouTube for us, and then we can just grab it and chuck it into an article. So that really helps. If IFSEC, it's not. I know it's not a luxury you have at most of the like IFSEC we've been doing for a couple of years now, and it's sponsored. But it means we can start grabbing videos as they get uploaded. So we'll be doing that next week. The example in the middle is something that we started doing to grab speakers after they came on stage when they're sort of still excited, they've still got the adrenaline going, and then we asked them just to sort of condense down what they said without just tell us what's the key points that you made in your session. That's again that works a lot better than if you had a 40-minute video took the entire session, just get someone right up to the face. This is what I was talking about. It's much snappier, works better for the web. And then on the right, there's another video approach which we tried at IFSEC last year, and I think it worked pretty well. This was rather than us going to talk to manufacturers, sticking a camera in someone's face and asking them to sell to us. This is a really smart idea, I think, somewhere between Adam and Charlotte, of getting us to actually go through and sort of grill a manufacturer for us, because they know the technology they're looking for much better than we would. And I think there's something quite interesting in that. And I think it could also be applied to many different markets potentially. So who are the experts in your industry? Getting them to ask the questions rather than us works really well. And on sort of visual approaches, the image on the left is something that it's something which Marketo did actually at TFM. They sent down this artist to visualize what was happening at the show, and this was a feature which they made, and it attracted huge crowds all the way through 2 days of the exhibition. It was a really smart idea actually, and it looked lots of better content than we were. And so I thought, yeah, we were. And the following e-commerce expo, what we started doing, we built our own artist, and she started drawing visitors. That's what you can see on the right. This was a great big wall of we grabbed visitors, take lots of photos of it. People like being turned into cartoons. And in this, we asked them to talk about the marketing technology they use, what their e-commerce stack is. So it became, as it grew, sort of like a map of all the different marketing and e-commerce technologies people were using. It kind of worked in two ways. The visitors were taking photos of and sharing on their own social networks, and it became a kind of visual map. This is what technology the industry is using. And again, I think there's definitely more that we could do around that with crowdsourcing what visitors are interested in and finding a way to turn that into. EcoBuild did that. This is a few years ago at EcoBuild, and they had this stick it to once. And they asked people to write down on post-it notes what they'd like to say to Boris Johnson. And this again came up with which over the show grew and grew and grew. There are thousands of post-it notes, and actually is a really simple thing to do. If it's a contentious topic or something that's in the industry, to get people to write down what they think about it. And that could be a great source of ideas and of content afterwards. So those are a few different approaches, which I'm sure there's more. There's probably loads more. I want to touch on video briefly because a lot of time, as soon as you start talking about creating content from a live event, video gets mentioned, understandably, because it's the most natural way to capture something. But we have tried and failed with video in a number of different ways. I think that when you think about videos, you sort of immediately you think about TED and you think about why couldn't our event be like TED and it creates year-round sort of conference. When you look at that image of TED, what you don't see is there are 7 video cameras all around there. You don't see the days, weeks of preparation the production team have gone through, like drilling the speakers to get their speeches absolutely spot on, coaching and getting them moving around the camera, and also putting the way it's lit and dressed. That conference sort of setup is very unusual for us, with the exception perhaps of groups, depending on what the venue is that we're going to be. Most of the time, our seminars look like that, and that doesn't make for a good video. And having a camera stood at the back of that room with crosstalk, chatter, someone stuck behind the podium, doing that, it just doesn't work. So when you look at the average engagement with video, it drops off sharply. So if video length is across the bottom, you can see that it seems to hold off okay at around sort of 2 minutes of video, so it was around like the 70% engagement. After that point, it drops off pretty quickly, and so that's taking a half an hour, 45-minute capturing it in video doesn't tend to work. What does work, as mentioned, is getting people to deliver something direct to camera, which is, again, something we're going to be doing next week. So this was trialled at the show last year. I remember Charlotte running around with flyers, doing drops to exhibitors to say, we're just going to do this at 3 o'clock today. Would you like to come down? And there was a great big queue of manufacturers who took the challenge, and they said yes, they would like to pitch their product in 45 seconds. So there was quite a lot of excitement around it. The exhibitors did really well, actually. We've got lots of people doing it, and it's just much tighter, much sharper than other approaches, and it sort of works really well. So that's something we'll be doing on Wednesday afternoon. We'll be doing these 45-second pitches. In terms of how we do it, so there does need to be a structure around this for it to is the plan. So I've circulated the small so hopefully you've received that. What I haven't got on here is an exhaustive list of all the conference sessions being covered. So sort of but what we're going to do at 9 a.m. on Wednesday is go through the conference programs and say these are the ones that we want to cover. So there needs to be a fair amount of into it. It does help having a plan of resource and where we're going to be at any given time. So identifying the best content opportunities and documenting it is important. Many of those content opportunities will be in the seminar theatres, but not all. So if there are particular features or other things that you're interested in, try and document all of that as much as possible. In terms of sort of team and how we do it, obviously the more people, the better. For a show like PNN where we've got 14 theatres, it would be great to have 14 people covering all of those sessions. We won't be able to do that, but as many people as possible. 45 sessions. Ideally, there'll be people going around sort of getting instructions from the show floor. And as I mentioned, how we send the photographer out on day one of the show, that certainly fulfills that role. And I've called it rather grandiosely a command center. I mean, this is really just someone on a laptop, but there needs to be someone who is acting as editor in this. So copy cutting, set up an email address for all the copy to come in. The email is ubmswarm@gmail.com. That's what I tend to use. And so the idea is that you can email their copy. That thing gets picked up, and if there's someone to sub it who's separate to that, then great. Then it can get pushed onto the sub just to give it a quick proofread. Otherwise, it's the person who's in the CMS to tidy up and to publish it. At the same time, social media also should be done. Usually, what we encourage is that everyone all around the show is using social media as much as possible. So just tweeting stuff out as it happens on the hashtag, and that then can be picked up more easily and dropped into stories, dropped into articles. It helps if the person who's doing this is in the venue generally. It helps coordination and know what's going on, but it doesn't have to be. And actually, sometimes where we've been in, I'm thinking about Chengdu, say, where you're behind the Great Firewall of China, and so internet's practically useless. It may well have been better actually if lots of content stuff were probably happening from UK office rather than being there on the show. And if we can't even if we can't actually physically get to national events, if there's enough that's going on social media, that proves to be a more efficient way of doing it. It was to actually physically be in a venue. May not be. So that's broadly the structure. I mean, it depends how many people you can get to do it. I'd encourage all of you to get involved in as many of these swarms as possible and help out on each other's events, much as we do, much as our sales team do, much as our marketing help each other. Get as many boots on the ground as we can. But even just one person writing a seminar theatre, which then gets published later, is nothing. Preparation is also useful, not just in preparing what you're going to be covering, but if there's something which you know is going to happen. So if you've got an awards do and you know who's going to be, then it's still written. If there's something which is going to go into the press release, you don't need to necessarily write it in advance. Something which we're going to publish on Wednesday is our most influential people in health and safety. So that article is it still troubles me slightly having it in the CMS and hoping we can accidentally publish before. So there is that risk with it. All we need to do really is just grab a photo and it's been done. There's also a danger of there just being much stuff. So when you've got lots of things coming in from different places, and maybe you've got video and photos and all, there's a limit actually to how useful that is, unless you a great big long newsletter. I mean, and I think it's open to debate really how to deal with that. It's absolutely worth capturing all of that. I think in most cases it probably is worth publishing it, just getting it out there because it will be of interest to someone. So if you're talking about an exhibitor's released a product, it will be of interest to them, and they will promote it with their own channels. But we don't have to promote everything at once. We can capture it and get it on the website somewhere, but we don't have to actively push it out. Our main, apart from pushing stuff on social, the main opportunity to email. So generally, just pick the 2 or 3 biggest, best stories to go in that, and the rest of it could be promoted at a later date if need to be. Depends how time sensitive something is, of course, as well. And with all of this, it's how we communicate on site that makes or breaks it. WhatsApp has now, I think, become well, it's an essential part of event technology. I remember we used to do this without text messages, but really important. That's why we're setting up a WhatsApp group for this. And the idea is just keep in touch with stuff that's going on. Take photos of anything that's interesting. Any impressions that you can capture around the venue, any questions you've got, just get it all in there. I'm sure we'll be able to. And if in doubt, just tweet some quotes, images, whatever it is. If you tweet it on the event hashtag, then we'll be able to pick it up. All the copy goes to this email address, ubmswarm@gmail.com, and generally the deadlines we work to every day is that we want to get in enough copy for the newsletter by around midday. That's typically when we send stuff over to the marketing team. That can be the day prior day's content, but certainly for the first day of the show, Tuesday, we'll be looking to get this photo article ready to go. And I'm about to pass over to Wes, but just a final point. It can be fun as well. It should be fun. It needs to be. It's not just a serious big rig talking about something. We want it to reflect all of the interesting stuff that's happening over the show. When we take maggots at FI, then let's use those photos in a story. And the same goes with WhatsApp. I mean, it's just fun because it should be fun. I love going on. Certainly at P&M when the sun's shining, I think it's just a fun experience, and I think we need to try and reflect that. Right, Wesley.
Yo.
You now to talk about how you do it at Roots.
Okay, cool. Hello. And by the way, if everyone else has got their microphone on, could they please turn it off? Because there's a bit of sneezing and Outlook pings, etc., coming on the line. So just to make sure everyone can hear it. So yeah, when I started at UBM, Luke talked to me about Swarm, and like everyone else probably, I nodded sagely and said, yeah, of course, Swarm plans. And then when he asked me to actually write a Swarm plan, I realised I didn't really know what one was. But what it comes down to for me is just good journalistic practice, just doing the right things and embedding that in a formal way in the way we work events. I think the thing we need to remember about events is they are hectic. Mistakes happen. Things get forgotten. Things don't go right on site. And I don't think you can over-prepare for covering an event. I think the more you can do, the more you can formalize in advance, the better. It just helps to make sure you at least achieve some of your main content goals, even if you can't get everything over the line because of what happens on the day. Can we have the next slide, please, Mr. Bilton?
Uh-huh.
Now, the main thing about a good Swarm plan is transparency. I went to an event where the person who was leading the content had a secret spreadsheet that nobody else was allowed to see, and that told them what they were doing. And it's no use to the wider content team. It's no use to the wider business. It's no use to the content department hiding what we do. We need to be as visible and transparent as possible. If nothing else, because the more transparent we are, the more efficient we're likely to be. Transparency in a good plan makes sure that any potential challenges are raised, make sure that the output is improved. It makes sure that you don't miss what's going on. At the same event, there was a press conference going on, and nobody had been assigned to go to it because it hadn't been raised with a big group of people in advance. Marketing, commercial, whoever it is, who could say, well, somebody needs to go to this event. And that's what transparency and a good, well-communicated plan allows us to do. And by the same token, it means we don't have duplication. It means that we don't get two people going along to the same session when there are two different things that they could be doing at the same time. And a good plan, like I say, allows you to engage the wider business. If you can get commercial and marketing and everybody else involved in that, and I'll talk a bit more about that later on, we're likely to get a better output and a better ROI for the exhibitors and paying delegates, which I'll go into some more detail on how we do that later on. And the other good thing about a more efficient and improved content output is that when it comes around to next year's event or the next event, we have better marketing collateral. The better the content is, the better the event looks. when people are looking at it. And so, to the wider world, not been to one of our events before, it shows a better picture of what it's really like going to a UBM event. Next slide. So yeah, a swarm is primarily led by content, but there are all these other people who can feed into what we do. I'm not going to go into all of them in detail, you can see on the slide, but if we pick out marketing, they can help out with visual content, they can do a lot of social sharing, they can, actually, when they're at the actual event, anything going on like networking events, we had fireworks at one of our events, for example, marketing can be a great help in bringing that together. But I mean, how do you really engage the wider team, and how do we do it at Roots? In the run-up to the event, we have bi-weekly event meetings, and I will stress at every one of those meetings that we're available as a resource. If they have a client that leads a bit of love on site, commercial, we can add value to them. We can throw in an interview, we can speak to a sponsor, we can add value to their packages. So then they start to see us as a resource. They may be able to set up an interview for us with one of their clients. So the more we can engage with a wider team at these meetings, the better. As Luke said, there's a WhatsApp group, and you should encourage not just your content team, but the wider business, at least one person from each department to be on that WhatsApp group. Because if nothing else, you can't be everywhere at once. There might be some events, there was Roots Europe, or there's only me from a digital content really, and I can't see what's going on in the exhibitions while I'm doing a live blog from the conference. But if someone else sees something cool going on, something at the stands it's worth taking a picture of, they can take that picture, send it in the group, and you can make sure it gets a space in the content output. The commercial team are a big one, as I mentioned, in terms of helping them with their clients. I'll give you an example. We had an interview which was added value to a sponsorship package with Lucky Air, a Chinese airline. Now I went along to this expecting it to be commercial bump, and they told me that they were going to be creating 10 new aviation hubs around China, which no one in the Western media had reported before, and it ended up being our best read story from that event. So, by engaging the wider team, by getting the bigger picture, you're likely to not just get a wider pool of output, but also better output really. And in terms of you've got exhibitors and delegates on there. How do you get them involved in swarms? Social media. We did the best selfie competition at the Lexis. If it was take a picture of themselves on their stand and tweet on the hashtag, whatever it is that we can do to get exhibitors, delegates, everyone else engaged in a swarm plan, then we will get more content coming through. And the more that you have coming to you when you're the editor or the command center, as Luke puts it, the easier your job is, because it becomes a job of curation and output rather than doing all of the creation yourself. Next slide, please. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Again, I'm not going to go into all of this because Luke talked about it in some detail, but when it comes to the whole content picture from live and digital, we have a huge range of different content types that we can produce. Even live content, which isn't my specialism, for example, we're doing polls, feedback, live feedback with questions. You can get the exhibitor slides to put into content. Speakers, their speeches, you can get in advance. So there's a huge amount of different inputs and outputs that go on in a swarm, and understanding what all of your inputs and outputs are likely to be in advance of the event will ensure that you're well prepared. Next slide, please. Everything we do, you've probably seen this methodology before, but it is really important. One of the best things I've found since joining UBM is that I'm free to create, try new ideas. But if I try something because I think it's going to work, it doesn't mean it is going to work. And if I try it and it works a couple of times and doesn't work ever again, we have to be realistic and say what do we want to achieve by this? How do we measure that success? Has it been successful? If not, we can amend it. If not, then we can get rid of it, if so be it, if we need to do that. And that way it clears the space, it clears the capacity to try to create something new which might work next time. But it's all about, giving something a go, seeing if it works, and then learning those lessons for your next event. Next slide. Yeah, so a bit more detail of what we've actually done since I've come into the role, really. Going to be quite a few bullet points here, so I won't go through them in too much detail. But we had a problem at Chengdu where people were saying to us, "It's our event. We're halfway through it, and there's no content on our website." And for me, that was a problem. And I thought the easiest way to address that would be a live blog. Something that's kept up to date at the minute, and it gives an impression of what's going on right now at our event. One of the main things that allows you to do is to own your event in a digital space. If you have competitor publications as media partners, as we do at Roots, if they're reporting everything that's going on at Roots, and we're reporting nothing, then it looks like their event. We're not owning that event on our own media channels, and we need to do that. Similarly, on social media, the live blog allows you to promote a lot of people's tweets, to collate everyone's tweets on the hashtag, and to showcase the noise that people are doing around the event. Okay, you can retweet them, or you can reshare them, but bringing them all together in one space to embed those actual tweets gives more value to those people who are engaging with you, and hopefully promotes further engagement. And when it comes to the actual nuts and bolts of creating the copy, the live blog, once I've live blogged a session, all the main quotes are there. Everything of interest is there. And if I'm writing the story or somebody else is writing the story, they can simply grab those quotes, top and tail it, turn it into a story, and get it out there. There's a few other things it does. You can promote your stories, give exhibitors exposure, as I mentioned. But ultimately, what a live blog's about is giving you a better sense of what happens at our events. A couple of stories is fine, but it doesn't necessarily tell the story in an event. How we do it, what actually goes into a live blog, all the live content, any press releases, awards, tweets, anything we can goes on there. Focus on something visual. If you can get pictures from the event, slides, they're always going to work better than words. If you can see on the right-hand side there, I've literally just put the intro, a big picture, and a link to the story on the live blog, and people will follow that channel if they're interested. We promote the live blog while it's happening on site through banners, stories, and on social. Pardon me. And one thing that Luke mentioned is it's a social first approach. If people are in the wider team and they're seeing something or they want to say something, get them to tweet it. If you're monitoring those channels, if they tweet it, then you can scoop up that tweet and put it on social media. And it's a 2-second job of embedding a bit of code rather than writing something for the blog, and it gets out there as quickly as possible. And the other couple of points I've probably mentioned previously, but also working very closely with your photographer is a big deal in live blogs because it does allow you to get the pictures when you need them. This is what we've done so far at Roots. We've done 3 live blogs now. The middle set of stats are in chronological order. As you can see, with every event we're doing, the number of views, the number of shares is increasing for the blog. I'd like to think that's because people are understanding it and seeing what it's all about and it's picking up traction. And the real test will be at World Roots when we have a much bigger event and over a longer period of time. And hopefully...
Wiz, could you explain what Ram Ras Roo means?
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry. I forget that not everyone knows all the acronyms in UBM. Roots Americas, Roots Asia, and Roots Europe.
Right.
So there are 3 major events we've had so far this year, roughly similar in size, obviously in different locations, so that will impact. But I would have expected the Roots Americas to be higher than Roots Asia, just in terms of the marketplace there and our exposure in that marketplace. But as you can see, the Roots Americas impact was lower than Roots Asia, hopefully showing that it's a positive trajectory. And then Roots Europe was much higher again. So hopefully it means that we're getting better and people are starting to understand what we're doing out of live blogs. Moving on. Articles. We all know why we do articles. But along with the things that Luke said before, and he went into some detail, a lot of what we can do with articles means it's exclusive. If we do interviews or grab hold of 5 minutes with people, it means an exclusive story that no one else has got, which is better for readership, and it's also more likely to reach the wider press. If we can do something that will get picked up by a national or other regional press that's on our website first, and they link back to us or they cite us, it improves our standing as a media and content producing organization. It creates marketing and social collateral, as Luke mentioned. The article that he showed you before, that one on the right hand side, that's it. That's the full article. 150 words, maybe 91 shares. So shares are a great indicator of how many people actually enjoyed the article, because somebody might click on a headline because they're interested. I know I do. Go through to an article and see there's nothing of value for me. But if people are sharing that article, then clearly they find it valuable. And of course, articles help us with one of our main KPIs, which is getting people to sign up for our newsletters or our website or however else we capture their data. Building on what Luke said before, hard news headlines work best. No fluff. One quote is as good as a story. So if you've got one session where you've got 20 possible, 20 decent lines, you could have 20 stories. You don't have to do them all at the event. Something I'm going to do at World Routes, which some of our competitors do, and I think is a great idea, is send questionnaires out to all your exhibitors beforehand. Ask them a few questions. They can be templated. You can do it as a mass email, BCC if you need to. And when they come back with their answers, why they're there, what they're hoping to achieve, what have been their big achievements, whatever it is, turn up to them on site, take a picture of them, take a selfie, whatever it is. You've already got the story rewritten, and you've got a story good to go before the event. It's dead easy, and it saves you having to speak to people on site, getting a pad or getting your dictaphone or however it is you get stories. Quantity of stories is better than long stories for me on site. 150 to 300 words is fine. People's attention span doesn't tend to go over 300 words, especially not if they're at an event. So keep it short and snappy and web-ready copy. And include as many images and presentations as you can to make them more visual. And talk to everyone you can at the event to get as many different stories and lines as you can. Similar to the live blog, this is our trajectory for readership for total page views, our event output, my last 3 events. So from Routes Americas to Routes Asia to Routes Europe, which is RU, you can see we've grown from 2,300 to 7,300 story views by adopting these practices, which for me are just sound journalistic practices for online content. And hopefully, we'll see that continue at World Routes, which is our biggest event. And there is an argument to say that longer stories are more shareable, but it's about getting as much content out there as possible. Now, something that we saw at some of our events, and you guys might see the same, is that image galleries are really well received. So we tried doing more visual content at events. It's worked with mixed success for us, but it might work better for you. One of the main rationale behind this is visual content gives a much better feel for what the event actually was like to attend. And of course, you've got lots of pictures of people. Everybody likes to see pictures of themselves, so people, will look through an image gallery to see themselves. A visual run through allows you to collate lots of other types of content, including press releases, and also just means you're providing a broader suite of content and more marketing collateral for the event, rather than just a few articles, which might be evergreen, or they might be completely out of date in a year's time or 6 months' time, depending on how your industry works. In practical terms, we try to do it after each day of an event. We use a third-party application called Spark, which allows you to create sort of a nice visual presentation that you scroll through, and it has nice transitions between the images, etc. In real terms, doing 3 of those on site was very difficult when there's only 1 or 2 content people there. So what we're going to do from now on is just create one after the event, which was pretty well read. The stats on the next slide. But with everything like this, we need to make sure we're promoting it as heavily as possible. You can see there the statistics. So Routes Americas, we did 3 visual presentations. First one was quite well read. Second one was better. Third one was dreadfully read. And that was because, as I mentioned in the previous, we didn't have a delivery mechanism for it. We didn't have a standalone newsletter. So, when you're talking about an hour's work to do and 33 views, it's very disappointing output. But we thought the first 2 days worked well, so we'd replicate that at Routes Americas. Sorry, Routes Asia, that should be. That's a mistake on my part. But the views were worse at Routes Asia. despite only doing 2 of them. So we thought it's a lot of work. We're not proving the concept. So what we'll do is one post event when we've got a bit more bandwidth at Roots Europe, and that was sort of somewhere in between in the readership, 343 views, which was okay actually. And it's something we're probably going to continue at World Roots to see how that works. And that's just what I mean about being bloody minded about things at times and saying, yeah, it's a great idea, it looks great, but what is it actually getting us? If it's not working, then try a different approach, or try try it a few more times, and if the views get lower, then we'll take a view on that next year. Next slide, please. Podcasts. Now, it stands to reason in an industry like, well, most industries that our usual exhibitors are time poor, but they spend a lot of time traveling. So videos might not work so well, but podcasts might have a better impact in the market. The great thing about podcasts is if you've got a mixing desk or you're recording your audio from the sessions through microphones, you can grab the audio at no extra cost. Whereas, as Luke mentioned with a TED Talk, or to get decent video, it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of expertise, and it takes a lot of money. So podcasts we're looking at as a way of capturing that, packaging it up, and giving our readers a different way to hear that content if they weren't able to go to the event. And if you imagine we take it World Roots, let's say, that all of the sessions, we package them up as podcasts throughout the year, we get a following. It's only going to help us next year to promote the event if people are already thinking this is great content that we might hear if we go. And we're also hopefully looking to get the podcast sponsored. It only needs to be a 20-second, audio clip at the start on a podcast. It usually works that way. So again, it might be something that one of your exhibitors can sponsor, or another sponsor, or you can wrap it into a package for the event. But there's definitely a huge sponsorship opportunity around it. And with it being a podcast, we're currently working for the Tech Gremlins, but if you can get it into an RSS, you can get it into iTunes, and you can get it on a wider market in your own data source. And if people who in the wider industry are interested in your topic are finding you through iTunes, then clearly you're going to be getting more people engaging with your brand than you can get just reaching your own pool of data and talking to the same people all the time. Finally, newsletters. We do 3 for an event. Newsletters are a fantastic delivery mechanism for content, as we all know. You can get to your entire database where they are, even if they're at the event. It allows you to collate all your news, all your content in one space. And we sponsor ours. We usually have 3 to 5 sponsors on there, so they're a great opportunity to generate revenue from content output. In terms of the how we do them, I don't like doing too many stories in a newsletter because I think there's a risk of dilution. If you have 50 stories in a newsletter, you're still only getting to get the same number of eyes on it, and what you'll get is 50 people split over different stories. Whereas what you want is fewer, stronger messages for me, fewer, stronger news angles. So each newsletter, I'd say 6 to 10 stories is fine. Images in newsletters, fairly straightforward. It makes them more compelling. You can do newsletters during the event, or post-event newsletters are fine. And if you do have anything, whether that's a load of press releases you don't want to put into a newsletter, whether that's other products that you're wanting to push out there, such as white papers, you can include image links or static links. Your newsletters can not just be about what's happening in content, but giving the full picture of an event and what's happening at the event. It could be, a link to your program, things like that we do. The newsletter is a great mechanism of being content-led, and including marketing material and getting in touch with your audience. And just finally, to build on something that Luke said before about not just having all your content at one go at your event. We, at Roots Europe, it was our 3rd event of the year, so we didn't get as much time to do pre-event content as we wanted to, because we have 3 events in 3 months, really. So our pre-event content generated 2,000 page views, which was a little bit disappointing when we looked at some of our other events. But at event, it was our strongest one since I've been here, at 7,300 page views. But also part of what we did was collate stories, speak to people, get interviews, get quotes from people, and then spin those out. We spent it out over about 4 or 5 weeks after the event, which gave us about another 4,000 page views. So it was from the same content output that happened at the event. We managed to get another 4,000 page views over the next few weeks. So we were really looking at doing no extra work, continuing the story of the event. Hopefully, people might be rebooking during this period as well. So we might be getting more revenue off the back of this, or certainly more registrations on the website. And just continue to tell the story of the event and using that collateral to keep generating interest for a longer period of time. And I think that's about it from me.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you, Wes. I'm always really nice to see the Roots test and learn approach that both on Carolyn's live content and on the digital side. I think because Roots has got that luxury, if you like, of having 4 events in a year, this approach which Wes has been talking through, you can really see it working, and I think you can see the engagement going from event to event to event. And I think that there's lots of lessons in there that we can take for P&M next week, actually. So things like the live blog and the snappy articles and all the rest of it. We'll be interested to see how the podcast does, of course, as well, because that's going to be new, isn't it, for World, the podcast?
Yeah, well, if we manage to get all of the audio down, and then we should have a huge volume of content really for the podcast. So we can cut that up however we want, and also all of our technical gremlins will have been solved by then, so we can start getting them iTunes weekly or fortnightly or however we want, really.
Fascinating, thank you. Right, okay, so let's wrap up then. So we're going to talk briefly through P&M. So this is for those who are joining us, and the more the merrier. This is what we're doing at P&M next week. So on Wednesday, we will be. The idea is we're going to capture and amplify the best bits from P&M. So that's there's 5 shows within P&M, but the main ones we're going to be focusing on are IFSEC and FireX, which all gets published through ifsecglobal.com. Adam Bannister, editor, is on the line, and SHP online, where we're going to be covering everything from the safety industry. So there are other shows going on. There's a facility show and service management, but those are the main ones we're going to be focusing on, and that's because that's where we've got our content brands. And so the idea is that everyone here who's going to be involved with that gets involved with one or the other of those 2 brands. So I've started sort of allocating roles and responsibilities, and broadly that goes through produce. So that will be the people who are on the floor capturing stuff. That's where the majority of people sit. There's publish, so the gatekeeper who's getting the stuff up on the websites, and then promote, which is typically the handoff to the marketing teams, or how we're promoting it ourselves. But those are sort of like the three main areas. So for security and fire content, that's all going to be published on IFSEC Global, and so the people we put against this are Angelique, who's going to be covering IFSEC and FireX, David, who's the new editor of Roots Online. I won't actually have started by this date, but it'd be great to have him. We put him against the Borders and Infrastructure Zone within IFSEC, because there's quite a lot of sort of aviation-related stuff. There's like IATA are going to be there, and it's probably one of the closest links between the world of aviation and security. And Adam Bannister, our roving editor, is going to be covering the theatres himself, of course, and also meeting with clients. I mean, that's something which I think we always have to sort of try and build into these plans, is that particularly an editorial kind of role, or what Charlotte's going to be doing is, there's going to be so many different people we have to meet, and we get around in different places. So I know that Adam's going to have a lot of sort of meeting with associations and exhibitors as well. Now, Carolyn and Genia, we have put you both against organising Silverstream videos. So Silverstream is this roving video resource we have, and what we want to do is, I think we can have a bit of fun with it, and we can try and work with them in different ways. But what we definitely want to repeat this year is the 45-second exhibitor pictures. There may well be other stuff that we're going to do, but I think that would be a good thing. And the way we did it last year was, as I mentioned, Charlotte going around doing leaflet drops, or speaking to people, getting them involved. So I think that gives a bit of a template for what we can do. There's also IFSEC's Most Influential, which was announced last week. A number of those people are going to be there, so we want to interview them as well. So and there'll be no shortage of people to interview and things to video. Safety. So another new editor, James Everson, is going to be joining us. Monday is his first day, bless him, and then straight into the show on Tuesday. So we put James against Safety and Health Expo's biggest theatre, which is our keynote arena. And he'll be writing up, so most of the big panel debates and keynotes, there'll be SHB presents, lots of stuff going on. James will also be meeting with clients and those duties. We've got Lauren Appleby, who is a star, who will be covering our safety theatres with Lorraine and Celeste. So that's our sort of safety and health expo team. And I say the more merit. So anyway, which office is that?
Manchester. When you have far along there. Yes.
All right. So all that copy, as it gets produced, email it across to this email address, ubmamir@gmail.com. In the CMS on Tuesday and Thursday, I think that will probably mostly be me. On the Wednesday, it's going to be Wes and Jen. And so they'll be picking up the copy, giving it a quick proof, and publishing. And then in terms of promotion, again we put Hannah Genia and Jen Rogers against that, and so that's going to be in using Hootsuite more than likely. So Hootsuite's a social media tool we generally use to curate and to push out Twitter messages more than anything. And then the big promotion opportunity is getting it in that marketing email, which I mentioned. So that's going to be at 12 o'clock every day. And so we're going to. I put Wes and my name against that, but Adam, James, Charlotte, I think we need to have a quick conflab to say what are the stories that we want to lead better. But if in doubt, it's good to have someone's name against it. So that's what that's what everyone will be doing. That's what's documented in the Word documents which you've been sent. And we'll be talking about it when you arrive at the venue anyway. So don't worry that this isn't just the full briefing. We will be talking about it when we get there. In terms of how you get there, the P&M marketing team have produced a whole series of graphics for every show showing how we actually get to the venue. The Custom House tube station is closed, so we're directing everyone to go to the next one down, which is Prince Regent. XL sits smack bang between those tube stations, so there's not going to be any walk or anything, but just get off that at Prince Regent. For anyone who's coming in through Waterloo, just hop on the Jubilee line for 15 minutes and get off at Canning Town and change for the DLR, getting off at Prince Regent. Pretty straightforward. XL always feels like it's 100 miles away, but it only takes 20 minutes. Actually takes longer to get to Olympia in a cab. And anyone coming in from Houston, so any Mancunians who are coming down to join us, or anyone else from that part of the world, then this is the route from Houston, just Victoria Line, and then you get on the Jubilee line. It'll probably take about half an hour. So no excuses for getting lost. That's how you get there. And then finally, this is the key times for the day. So this is broadly what everyone's going to be doing throughout the day. As I mentioned, we're going to be using WhatsApp heavily. So make sure you send us photos of how your journeys are doing and all the rest, because it's always nice to start building that community early via WhatsApp, as we've done in other shows and other training sessions. Bring a UBM badge. There's going to be heightened security, I believe, at the show, so be aware of that. It may take you a little bit longer to get through security. I think again, X-ray band.
And everyone's bag will be
So get off at Prince Regent's. We're going to meet in the Excel at 9 a.m. and that's when we'll go through the specifics of the conference program and which sessions you're going to be covering. There's three. We've got a few different places we could meet. I think we'll take a view on it on the first day really to see what's the most suitable place. We've got a room reserved on the south side, which is. I mean, it's good to have a room, but it can be a bit of a walk to get there. We've got a press office. I don't know until I see it. I guess we don't know how good that press office is going to be, how good the Wi-Fi is going to be. But if in doubt, there's just the Central Boulevard, which is where at Excel, that's where all of the main catering stuff is. So if you wanted to grab a coffee or something, we could just go to. There's loads of seating in that Central Boulevard. That may actually be the easiest place to do it because then we would sort of send people in one direction and in the other direction for north and southwards. So probably just meet in the Central Boulevard by Costa or something like that. But we'll be WhatsApping away. 10:30 the conferences starts. This is also when we should go out and start talking to exhibitors about getting video in the afternoon. 11:30. I think seeing as everyone's there, let's try and block out everyone's diaries to go and see Brian Cox keynote because this is great big inspirational keynote. It's one that our visitors all voted for that they wanted to see, and I think it's a great example of seeing. Well, Charlotte's work and just seeing this massive keynote theatre that we've built here, and it would be great. It'd be a really good experience. We've got about a dozen people from the Amsterdam office who are coming to the venue as well. I'm going to have to do a bit of a tour with them around about 11, but we'll be finishing that at Brian Cox as well. So if in doubt, just go to the Brian Cox thing at 11:30 because it will be great. I'm not going to do my Brian Cox impression. But it'll be brilliant. Then lunch in the afternoon. The sessions will continue at 3 p.m. or around about then. I think that's when we'll do the 45-second pitches with Silverstream. That will be going on in. Is it north or south? South. So that's sort of what we'll be doing in the South Hall. Meanwhile, at 3 p.m. in the North Hall, Safety and Health Expo. This will also be worth seeing, actually. This is our SHP Presents, and this is where we're going to be taking that big keynote. We're going to do a series of presentations. So we're going to unveil our most influential. There's going to be a women in safety panel discussion. We're going to be announcing Rising Stars. There's going to be a champagne reception. There's going to be a band playing. So from about 3 o'clock through to about 4:30, there's going to be lots of stuff happening in that part of the Excel, which will be worth stopping in on and having a look. The session will end about 5:30. And then after that, obviously, people have got different travel arrangements, but anyone who is able to stay, there's going to be facilities, exhibitor drinks. That's going to be our big evening entertainment. That's happening at grounds in Canary Wharf. So that's what the day is, broadly. And it's fun. So look forward to seeing you all there. Has anyone got any questions at all on that, or do any thoughts? Don't feel you have to. Great. See you all on Wednesday. Look forward to it.